Where are you going, little girl?
What happens when Storyteller looks you in the eye and changes the way you see the world? Roger Jenkins uses story to connect across cultures, languages, even silence. With a mask or tale, he reminds us the shortest distance between two people is a story. I'm Chris Choo, and this is HOTPLATE SG60. Roger,
Yeah.
welcome to HOTPLATE SG60.
Thanks very much for inviting me to come along.
My first question is, what is storytelling?
Storytelling is something that we do all the time. Of course, we all tell stories. It's how we connect with each other. And what drew me to it away from theatre, which is what brought me to Singapore, I guess, is that, one, I can use my own words when I tell stories. And this kind of like looking, it's the most direct way that we connect with other people. It's how we organise, information, how we see ourselves. It's the way that we make sense of the chaos of our daily lives.
Can I make it slightly more technical for a while? For clarity's sake. So, in traditional literature, we've got prose, poetry, and drama.
Yes.
So I was just thinking, I watched you on the World Storytelling Cafe. I was trying to fit you into one of these. I couldn't. I couldn't fit storytelling into one of these.
No,
and it's very intriguing because there is an additional element outside of these three traditional genres.
Yes.
Which is that human connection, that improvisation as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we speak, it's very different from the way that we write. So, yes, there are elements of theatre when we tell stories, and that's obviously influenced, because of my background, that's influenced the way that I tell stories. I tend to be very in people's face, whereas other tellers might be more wanting to draw the audience into them. There's certainly elements of poetry. You think of the kind of, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow the house down. There's those kind of very rhythmical elements in traditional stories.
But storytelling as entertainment, as its main impetus, right?
Yes. I'm thinking about my audience. What kind of stories do I think will appeal to them, be of interest? Some stories are obviously far more suited to a young audience. But stories have in them, many of them are what we would call wisdom tales. And so they embody a message. They don't preach.
Would this have a tradition from the fables?
Yes, of course. But those kind of stories really, I think, they're very didactic.
Yeah.
And that suits very well for young children. And it's great. You have a maxim to take away. A friend in need is a friend indeed. This is a good thing. You carry that with you. Perhaps when you're telling to adults, you want something that's more nuanced. And everybody listens to a story with their own ears. And what are between, your ears and your listeners' ears are very different life experiences, different culture, who you are. And so what you take away from a story is often very personal. And again, this is why storytelling has an impact. I was in a school recently and I told a story from Sarawak because the kids were going off on an educational trip. And a girl came up to me and she said, "I love the story about tigers." And I'm kind of a Sankanchil simple story of why there are no tigers in Borneo. And to me, it's a pretty ordinary story. It's nothing very special. But she loved it. I said, "Why?" She said, "Oh, I adore tigers. I've got 14 at home." Not real ones, I hope. So that's why that story really spoke to her.
It's the traditional story of Sankanchil.
Yes, a Sankanchil.
Okay.
So, yeah. But for her, that
the
really...
The tricky mouse deer who outwits...
Yes, exactly. And in that case, there's a tigers thinking about they want to come and inhabit Borneo, and he outwits them. And as a result, they go home and say, "We don't want to go to Borneo." And that's why there are no tigers.
So her takeaway was, I love tigers rather than the story.
About the story,
wow,
exactly.
Okay,
so, you tell stories, and I told a story at a kindergarten, and it's a fun story for the young children about a girl who draws a picture of her mum
Yep.
in school. And on the way home, she meets different animals. And each one says they like the picture, but something's wrong. So the elephant says the nose needs to be long, and the crocodile says the teeth are here, and the panda says it should have black eyes. So by the time she gets home, now the portrait of her mum has become this hideous thing with long ears and a lion's mane and everything. And she says, look, Mum, I've drawn a picture of you. Okay, and at that point I stop the story and I say, to the kids, what do you think the mum says? Does she like it? And they, no, and I said, what does it look like? It's horrible, it's ugly, it's mean, it's a devil, whatever. And then I say, okay, well, the mum's reaction is, she says, I like it. Yeah. And she takes it and she sticks it on the front of the fridge with 4 bright red magnets. And I ask the kids, why? And the kids say, because it's her daughter's picture, right? I looked at the teachers who are also, and they're all young mums, right? And quite a number of them are kind of like, cheering, because they've related to the story as mums. So, whereas the kids just found it a very funny story, and they like that, and they're laughing because they see, as they see the picture being changed, distorted all the time.
And I think that storytelling, as you say, there are many levels to it.
Yes.
So you were asked to use this storytelling skills to help the MOE, right?
Well, they didn't ask me. When they came back, it's not like 2011, 2012, and they wanted to put values education, character education became a thing. And it's really, really tough. How do you teach values? How do you teach being kind, being generous, integrity? Now, a lot of the schools have RICE, respect, integrity, compassion and excellence or creativity and whatever. How do you teach these values? What does that mean? And the great thing about a story is that it can make it very concrete, and we can see that.
How's that? I mean, how's that?
Can I give you an example?
Sure.
Okay. So this is a story from the Middle East, and there's a man, and he goes and he buys himself a camel. Okay. Of course, maybe here in the way COE prices are going up, we might all be buying camels, right? But anyway, so he buys himself a camel, and he comes home, and a camel saddle is very big and heavy. So he gets his servant to help him lift off the saddle off the camel. And underneath, they find there's this small black pouch, leather pouch. So he opens it up, and when he empties it, oh my goodness, there are jewels. Beautiful, diamonds and rubies and pearls, okay? And the servant's like, wow, master, you're so lucky you are. You got, you buy a camel and you've got all these jewels. And the man says, no. He says, I must take them back. For what, master? They are yours. He says, no, I bought the camel and I paid a fair price for the camel, but I did not pay for the jewels. And he puts them back in the pouch, ties it up, and very grumpily, the servant helps him put the saddle back on, and he rides back. And he finds the man who sold him the camel. And he says, sir, I think this belongs to you. And the man goes, thank you so much. I'm going to be praised. He takes it up, and he empties out all the gems, and they're all there. And he says, oh, thank you so much. He says, please, take one. A jewel. And the man says, no, it's not necessary. He says, please, take one. He says, as a token of my gratitude for returning the jewels to me. And the man says, no, it's not necessary. Besides, he said, when I decided to return them to you, I actually kept the 2 most valuable jewels for myself. And the man was shocked. What? You kept the 2 most valuable jewels for yourself? And he counts the jewels. He said, no. He said, they're all here. What 2 valuable jewels did you keep? And the man said, my self-respect and my integrity. It's very short, it's very punchy, and yet it makes that, I think, very clear. So that's what I try to do. These are a collection of stories for teachers and parents.
So what do you think is the difference between me reading this story in the book and you telling it?
Okay, if I'm reading the story, first of all, I'm looking here, and I just every now and again, just to make sure that you're paying attention or that. Secondly, because now I've put the book down, my hands are free, so particularly I can you saw what I was doing here. Where we are looking in a story is a very strong way that the audience, if I'm talking about a giant, or Little Red Riding Hood meets the wolf, I'm not looking here, there's this. So all these non-verbal communicators help to bring it alive.
The storyteller activates the imagination.
Absolutely.
I see this as traditional storytelling. What's its relevance in this era of social media and immediate gratification? Netflix is just bombarding you with
Sure.
it leaves nothing to the imagination. I mean,
This is it. It bombards you all the time,
Yeah.
and it's instantly forgettable, right? A friend of mine said she went and she was doing a session the other day at a hospital, and afterwards a nurse came up to her and she said, "You came to my school 22 years ago, and you told us a story about," and she listed the 3 stories. 22 years later. I go into schools and I have kids come up to me and they talk about the story that I told last year. I mean, these are kids who probably, you teach them something in maths today, by tomorrow they've forgotten it completely. And yet a story, they have this stickiness. People remember stories because it's this personal communication, the connection that comes with the story. You're remembering the teller.
Are you passing on this skill to Singaporeans?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, just last week I was on Sentosa working with people who are, frontline, working with their guests, how they could introduce elements of storytelling into their work in order to make this a more personal and hopefully a memorable experience. So when they're talking, for example, about interacting with a dolphin, for example, they can share, their personal experience. Each one has their own personality.
And the passion and the emotion that comes with...
It's not just coming and saying, "Oh, that shark looks nice," but also to have a sense of belonging.
I think Singaporeans do need this skill.
Absolutely.
Because Singaporeans are very factual people.
Yeah,
You just,
exactly. Facts by themselves don't mean anything. The king died, the queen died.
Yeah.
This is just information. The king died, and then the queen died of grief. That is a story.
Yeah.
And immediately we've now got a relationship here between the king and queen, and we want to know more. Yeah. For me, this is one of the biggest changes that I've seen in the 40 over years that I've been here since I came back, is when I arrived in 1978, returned in 78, that I felt the way that Singapore as a place treated people with disability was very, very different from the way it is now. And that's been something that, one of the reasons why I guess I stayed too, is
that's when you started high theatre.
Right? And got involved with the deaf community. Yeah. But I also do audio description, and this is, there are theatre companies like Wild Rice and Singapore Rep Theatre who are really keen to try and reach out and make their performances more inclusive.
Audio description is actually a verbal description of a scene,
of the scene of what is happening. So all the non-verbal things that are happening in a play. So the audience is listening with their ears. I mean, the blind can hear what the actors are saying, but they don't know what they're doing, what they're wearing. And so, if you're a blind person, you're probably kind of like nudging whoever it is. Why are people laughing?
Right.
And so because they don't know that the man's dropped his trousers and is wearing Union Jack underpants or something, right?
Okay.
So you're providing that kind of commentary to make it accessible. And I just think this is, again, the huge strides that we have made as a country. Is one of the things that I'm most proud of as a Singaporean.
Were you born in Singapore?
I was born in Singapore, yes, born at the old Changi Hospital, because my father was in the Air Force.
Were you Singaporean from the start? Or
well, of course, because I was born here in the British time, like we're talking like a million years ago, right, back in the early 1950s. But I didn't realize that. Of course, I had a British birth certificate. And when I came here to work in 78, and I heard that whenever, a foreign baby is born here, that the mother has to sign away. And I just assumed that my mother would have had to do the same as well. But of course, I was born in the British time when that wasn't the case. And so I actually applied for PR in the early 1900s in my innocence, 1990s. And that's when the government kind of said, well, actually, Jenkins, you're breaking the law technically because you are a citizen by birth. And so I had to make a choice. So I actually I gave up my British citizenship to take up my Singapore, which it's very funny. I can't have dual citizenship. And when I tell kids that, they're often like, what? As though, I was crazy. But I'm sorry.
You made the right choice.
Absolutely. I've had a wonderful life here in Singapore. Singapore has given me so much that I'm really grateful for.
So coming back to storytelling.
Yeah.
Do you find traditions of storytelling in Asia?
Oh, yes. Huge. And that's when I really need to mention FEAST, which is the Federation of Asian Storytellers. Interestingly, apparently in the Japanese tradition, it's about being very faithful to the text, and often that you would be quite static. For us, from the Western point of view, unexpressive. You know, that you want to, that you shouldn't get in the way of the story. Whereas I feel I am the conduit. My job is to take the story and to make it accessible so that you get it.
Yes. I'm looking at your masks, and you mentioned they were from Bali, and my initial reaction was, are these no masks, right? But
these masks are, they're made in Bali, but they have a very strong, I suspect, influence by the Italian Commedia dell'arte. Sure. Let me just see what happens when I put a mask on.
Okay.
Yes, I'm so glad to ask you to talk about that. Because, of course, I am an expert on storytelling and masks. Yes. Whereas these are the half masks, which are very verbal. This one was made by a wonderful carver, Pak Lajar, in Yogyakarta.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. So this is what I'll, as getting more to me, maybe another couple of years, and I'll be over best mask. Yeah. So these are non-verbal.
Yeah. I can understand why in certain spiritual traditions they say don't put on a mask, because it invites whatever the mask represents into you, right?
This is true.
Perfect. Because when you put on this mask, you disappeared, and I saw,
yes, you're so right. You're so right. Yeah. You do not wear the mask. The mask wears you. That's what a mask does, and it enables you to kind of take on a completely different persona. I've had this. I did some work with theatre books way back, and an actor who was very, very Singlish suddenly put on this mask, and he put on a voice, and all his friends said, where did that voice come from? We've never heard you speak like that before, because it was totally different from him. And he was quite shocked. Took the mask off, like, okay. Because it does. I'm only using the mask for comic mask, comic. One of the most rewarding things I've done in the past couple of years is that I was at the Tanamera Prison School. They have a weekly kind of arts CCA program that runs for like 6 months, and they do a big concert for National Day every year. And I went in for a couple of years, and I brought the masks in and got the guys just to play. It was about developing their confidence, their communication skills, both working with the half and the full masks. It was great, and the guys were really good. It was such a rewarding experience because, again, the masks enabled the guys, the inmates there, to really show then a side of themselves and their creativity, their sense of comedy. It's very strong.
I'm just fascinated by your skills. Do you have a course in Singapore to teach career storytellers like you?
Yes, we do. We had 17 people from I think 8 or 9 different countries. I have one where I just bring in like everyday objects and the kids. So I'm looking at your computer mouse that you've got there on the table. What could that be? I mean, it could, because of that shape, it could be a whale, for example. You could use it as a phone. Okay, it could be a sandwich. I mean, so the kids are basically making up a story using everyday objects. So this is about creativity. It's about being able to look at something and see what else it could be, almost like visual punning, playful.
Yeah. Do you think that Singapore's multiculturalism has contributed to you being a better storyteller? Imagine if you were in the UK.
Absolutely.
Not London. London is multicultural, but
no, of course. And I do a lot of this bilingual storytelling. So I've obviously told stories with Mandarin partner, Malay, Tamil, Hindi, Vietnamese, Thai, Swahili, Nepali. I mean, so yes. So when I do that, I will look for like a Sankanchil story. If I'm working with, say, Jean Charudin, very dear friend, and he's telling in Bahasa, I'm going to be telling in English. And again, this idea that The audience, if you are monolingual, if you are only an English speaker,
Yeah.
you should be able to tell from my reaction, from what I'm saying, how I respond
Yes.
to Jean, that you can follow the story. It becomes a dialogue.
I understand.
And those
But
kind
it's
of...
not a literal translation,
No,
right?
no.
It's, yeah, okay, I get it.
So we take the story, and you might be playing the crocodile that wants to eat me as the chicken, right? And so you are speaking,
So you would play the part of the chicken and I would play...
the crocodile. So I might
that's
say, and you're
amazing.
Here and saying, it's
that's what I
lunchtime, and I'll
see.
go, please don't eat me. And that kind of thing.
Let's try a bit, okay? So you say the crocodile bit and I'll respond to you in Malay. What would you say?
Let's say, for example,
Okay.
but you want to eat me, and all right, okay.
Saya akan makan kau.
Please, crocodile, please don't eat me. I'm very small.
Okay, I get
And
it.
you can, but you can, and then you would say whatever. Okay.
Jangan.
No.
Okay,
I mean, so
I get it.
Yeah.
So the dynamics are really interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's initially I thought it was just a literal translation.
No. That
amazing.
And again, go back to what I said about how when we write and when we speak, it's different. So this is a challenge, particularly for like Tamil, where I think the Tamil that they teach in schools is quite formal, classical, right? Whereas the Tamil that we might use, that Indian speaker might use in everyday life, is very different. It's colloquial, and more informal. And because of my sign background, I tend to do that. Okay. So I would say, for example, here, if I do this, this is the village, okay? So if I do this, I want you to say kampong. But if I say kampong, you're going to do the action. So it gets the kids watching and listening. So if I do this, they're going to say kampong. They're going to say the Malay. If I say kampong, then they're going to do this. Okay, that kind of thing.
This is really intriguing because, doing this series, we talk about integration a lot. And a lot of times it's just lip service. How do you integrate?
Sure.
This is an actual example of how you integrate naturally because I like that idea of where you're doing each other's language and you're trying to
sure. And again, this was why for me at High Theatre, the deaf theatre was so important because again, back in the 1980s, that the deaf was somewhere separate. People they don't have this chance. Even today, people have very limited chance to interact with somebody who has a disability. So when I tell stories with Gopi, they see that we're friends. He's Indian. I'm Caucasian. It doesn't matter. You see this equality.
Absolutely.
You see this acceptance, this friendship.
And when you do your workshops, it brings everybody
comes
into
together.
a process of integration, not just lip service. And you say, hey, you should integrate. How? Right? I mean, what's it about, right?
Exactly. And you start picking up the language, as I say, I use
mannerisms,
exactly.
the subtle emotions that different cultures feel differently, right?
On the other day, I'm on the MRT on the new Thompson East Coast line, and sat opposite me were these three Japanese ladies. I heard them speak, and they said arigato. I said yes. They said so, and they both got off at my stop at Siglap. So as we're going to the escalator, I said, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" And one did. And at the moment I said mukashi and urashimataro, they were kind of like, you know about Japanese culture. And we spent like 15 minutes on the platform, and I'm telling them about the story. And there was this moment of connection. And then I was asking them about pronunciation of some Japanese words in the story. It was great. And they were just like, good. High Theatre, we got invited to perform on the fringe of the Singapore Arts Festival back in 1986, I think it was. So we've been going for 2 years. So it was a collection of skits. And who should come along but B.G. Lee, at that time he was Deputy Prime Minister. And after the festival was over, Straits Times then did a roundup and they asked various people, what was your favourite show? And he picked our show as one of his favourites. I think because he came with his kid, and so the boy had been really engaged and enjoyed it. And I remember in that show because they just come out with the chewing gum ban, right?
Okay.
And I got it right. He said, you understood because in it, I made the point that it was possible to have chewing gum here. You just couldn't buy it, but you could, if it's medical and stuff. He said, yes. He felt, he was very proud that I actually kind of understood. So that was really good that, we got this kind of like seal of approval from the Deputy Prime Minister. So that was really special.
And this?
Okay, this was my very first mask show. And we called ourselves Fizzog, which is an old name for face. And that's going back like early 1980s, I think. I had hair in those days.
And this?
This is a production of Oliver.
Okay.
I mentioned Jean Sherudin in the top hat there. And this would be 1992. And this is me with Christina and doing Chekhov's The Bear, in which two very unsuitable people are brought together. We have a big argument. We're fighting all the way through the 30 minutes of the play, and at the end up, we kind of realise that we're in love with each other. So
that sounds very real to life.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it's Chekhov. But this was in the day before I discovered storytelling, and I was telling stories through drama using other people's words. And while I enjoyed it, I think I'm a much better storyteller than I ever was an actor.
Wonderful, Roger. Now, could you recite your poem? Rose will direct you.
I wish I could recite it, but as I say, this is like, 30 years ago. These are all different voices connected with the Singapore River. The book is called From the Belly of the Carp, which was the old name for the river. And this one is spoken by Ovidia Tupali, a data processor. This is a made-up character, okay? Rome, Paris, London, New York, Shanghai, and Singapore. Cosmopolitan cities sharing one thing. They flourished around their river. Ours is not big or broad or beautiful, but as a speck of irritating grit prompts an oyster to secrete a pearl, so this city, scratching at the itch of trade, has become beautiful, evolving through the years about a priceless heart.
Bravo. Beautiful, Roger.
Yeah, the Singapore River is really, I think at the heart of Singapore wouldn't be what it is without the river.
Absolutely.
And it's extraordinary. Singapore is here because of the river.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Roger, hope you're hungry.
I am,
I'm going to adjourn to the kitchen.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to cook up something for you.
Brilliant.
Roger, you requested rice.
I've got just plain white rice here,
Sounds
which you
good to
can
me.
eat.
Yep.
Or I could cook you something with the rice.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do today is a very famous Cantonese dish, but I'm going to sort of hybridize two Cantonese dishes.
That sounds good.
One is called Watan Yong Yok Fan. Watan just means in Cantonese-style scrambled eggs.
Okay.
And the Cantonese scrambled the eggs differently. And then Yong Yok just means lamb. And
Excellent.
Fan. Very important word for you, fan.
Fun, yes.
Rice.
Yes.
I'm gonna make a hybrid mui fan. Mui fan just means very wet rice.
Okay.
Okay. First, I start off with some lamb.
Lamb, yeah. I love lamb. That's great.
And I'm going to add in some Shaoxing wine, dark soy, some light soy, some black bean paste, oyster sauce, white pepper, and a bit of sugar. So this is the typical Chinese marinade.
Right. Okay.
This is corn flour. So what's your favorite cuisine in Singapore?
I live in Bedok. We're very lucky. There's an excellent Chinese restaurant, which I love. But I'm also very partial to my Indian vegetarian food, particularly.
What about English food?
Difficult to find a decent fish and chips here. That's for sure.
So put in some ginger.
Yes, that's great. I love ginger too.
Some spring onions. The white bits.
Yep.
Garlic. So we want to brown the garlic properly.
I cook up a lamb dish, vegetables to add crunch, and bold East meets West flavors blend. A sizzling fusion of spice, smoke, and surprise.
So this is step one. Now we switch woks. Okay, this is watan. Now we just coat the rice with some of the mixture. After you, sir.
So you want just to mix it?
Yep.
Mix it. You didn't tell me I was going to have to work on this. Rice, glorious rice. I can't remember the rest of it now. Good consistency here.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a white grain left. Okay.
Oil. Salt it. And we're going to add in spring onion. And we are almost ready to eat.
Wow. I think definitely I'm going to have to go home and try and improvise this myself. Improvise because I may not have all the ingredients, but you know, I get the idea.
It's simple.
Yeah,
it's just eggs, rice, and salted any which way you prefer, and some pepper, and you're done.
Definitely want to do that, but also I'm with the lamb too.
Roger loves rice, and I make a mui fan to go with the lamb. Mui fan, steamed rice drenched in silky, savoury gravy, a Cantonese hawker classic, rich with wok hei, comfort and culture. I'm always curious, the French have bon appetit, Chinese have chia, but the English.
I know, right. No, exactly. And because my parents were both Welsh, so we just, when we're drinking, we just say yakida, which is like cheers.
Interesting.
Yeah,
yakida, okay. Yakida.
Yakida. Very good. And thank you very much.
All right.
I love the lamb. It's a good job we had the discussion before we eat, otherwise.
At this stage, hardly any of the guests talk. They just...
Right. But again, you know, meal times are a great time for stories. This is the time when the family gathers. So maybe, you know, at breakfast, you're thinking, oh, my kid has got a big exam today, or they're playing an important football game, right? And so you want to tell them a story about keeping calm or keeping this in perspective, that it's not about the winning or the losing, it's about the playing. And it could either be, you know, a personal story or a story that has that kind of a message that you want to convey. If you invite a storyteller to lunch or dinner, once you share one story, they'll never stop.
Please, share.
2 siblings live on a farm. One gets married, moves out. They divide the farm. There's a dried up riverbed between my farm, my house, and your house. You say, look, that half on that side of the dried up riverbed is mine, this half is yours. Great. We get on really well. Every day. Okay, your wife comes, when the kids come over, my wife and kids go and have dinner like this. Beautiful meal. Okay. But one day, I see one of my cows has gone across that dried up bed and it's on your land. So I go and I start to bring it back, and you say, hey, Rog, what are you doing? That's my cow. I say, no, Chris, you're wrong. I said, that's my cow. You say, no, that's my cow. The patch on the shoulder here, it's my cow. I say, no. Look at the horns, it's my cow. And we're getting this big argument. And at the end, you throw me off your land and say, okay, it's your cow. I don't want to see you again. Take your cow and get off my land. You're very angry, and there's a kind of a lake here at the top, and you get your digger and you flood that stream. So now there's a real barrier between your land and my land. We stop talking. No more dinners together. Kids stop playing. Like this. And one day, a man knocks on my door, and it's a carpenter. He says he's looking for work. Have I got a job? I said, yeah. I said, you see that house over there? My brother and I were like this. We used to be really close, but now I said to the carpenter, I want you to build me a wall, big wall, all the way from there to there, so that I don't have to see him anymore. Can you do that? Carpenter says, sure. So the man goes off. I've got some, cows to exhibit or something, or sell in the fair or whatever. When I come back, I'm shocked, horrified, because instead of building a wall, he's building a bridge across the stream. I say, what the heck are you doing?
All right.
He said, I promised that I would build you what you need. I missed that out of the story. That I will build you, because I say, I want a wall. He says, yes, sir, I'll build you what you need.
All right.
And at that moment, as we're having this argument, you come running down across the field, arms outstretched, and you run up onto the bridge, stop halfway. And you say, Rog, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Of course that cow was your cow. And I find myself, for some reason, running up on the bridge and I'm saying, no, Chris, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. It was your cow.
Yeah.
And you say, who cares? My cow, your cow? It's not important. What matters is that we're friends again. We have a big hug. And maybe the tears flow as much as the water underneath the bridge.
Wow.
It's a really strong story, right?
Beautiful.
And, and so Gopi and I tell that story. We do a lot.
Lovely story.
Because it's about how we say,
Build bridges.
To build bridges, don't build walls. And this is what, SG60 is all about also, in a way. It's about trying to find ways to build bridges.
Absolutely. Cheers, Rog.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roger reminded us, stories connect, heal and feed the soul. This is HOTPLATE SG60, where every dish tells a story.